What's up, bros? Canal here. Bulls on Wall Street. Happy Easter. Gobble, gobble. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. Look, we got some action that should be coming on Monday. A nice big digestion last week. We did have some inflation data that's come out. I'm not even going to bother to look at the futures because it never really means anything these days anyways. We know that the gaps come and they fade and they pop and do all this kind of stuff. So who cares about looking at the futures? But I do expect a slight bit of action and most likely a gap tomorrow, a small one, hopefully, nothing 1% or more. That's where the trouble starts, all right? But if you look at the overall general markets, there's not much to read. We got a pop of consolidation. The inflation data looked okay, so we're going to be probably coming out of this range a little bit. The question will be if the gap holds. The interesting part of last week that is important is that the whole IWM is starting to test the top of the range. And if this can hold, the big hairy if, right, is that that leads to a whole subset of the market that gets unlocked that we haven't had access to for a period of time, which is your small caps and mid caps. We've seen some of them go, but not a broad-based run or any type of participation. So let's keep an eye on this. It's a very positive sign, but we've been rugged in these areas in the past on the IWM. The TLT is starting to round out a little bit, and so that's helping the IWM. We really need to see this come out of this wedge for the IWM to just start cooking, and that's when the fun comes into the market, right? The market's a lot more fun when you can trade, CVNA and Affirm and UPST, and you have like a whole subset of different stocks to trade versus your Magnificent Seven. So at the moment, all systems is a go. My expectation is there will be some type of gap in the morning, but I'm not going to sit there and stare at the futures and wonder, what if? There's all other types of what ifs you can play, right, rather than that game. So let's take a look at just the general watch list. We don't have to get too crazy because we already have, right, a base idea that the market itself is acting pretty bullish at the moment. One thing that we just need to be careful of tomorrow is if this market gaps up, say 1% or more, it's going to be a shit day because the gaps have been fading a lot, but you have not been getting like a lot of follow through on the short side at all. So you may get a gap up, then it fades off, and then it fakes out and does all the shit, all sorts of, all day. It just becomes a very difficult trade. So hopefully you get like maybe 0.5%, 0.6%, 0.4%, but anything over 1%, it's the chase is on, but then the rug gets pulled, and we are, and I want you to just be mindful of this. We are starting to finally see, right, in these kind of mega caps, we're starting to see, right, some change in structure on these, right, where like, you have like all this weakness on AMD, right? You have breakouts that are testing that are having trouble following through, right? And so you're having these kind of pulls in the market. Like if Google gets rugged here, right, that'll give us a good tell tomorrow in terms of like if it breaks out and gets rugged, that'll give us a good tell on, the structure of some of these big caps. Like you can see Microsoft kind of did that, right? It broke out, pulled back, broke out. And when that kind of structure changes where, the breakouts are fading, but then you get ripped back up on, weird stuff, it makes it a lot more tricky to trade. You can even see, right, Netflix is kind of stalling out a little bit. Apple's still very bearish, right? Even like Meta is like got this like weird slow grind roll that's happening. It doesn't mean it's rolling over. Like it can just get stuck in a range where you have a big one. And I think that's probably what happens with something like this when you have this kind of digestion after really like a historic kind of 500, 600% run. When I say historic, I'm talking for like a mega cap company, right? That's just incredible. And then you can see even Tesla's bearish. So you have these Mag 7 stocks. Like which one actually looks okay, right? Amazon holds, Google holds, and Microsoft kind of holds, right? And the rest of them have been shaken out. And so, that's something to just kind of keep into the back of your head too, that there is some kind of rotation already happening. Let's take a look at the general watch list, because there's some handful of things that we want to keep an eye on. So you do have Beto over here. And it looks like this is the ETF for Bitcoin. We have a potential move here if we can break past this trend line. Now, we do have to get kind of tighter over here. It may have to back and fill some range, but this is something to keep an eye on. This is not some like a kind of historically hot pattern because of how extended we are. But we may need to back and fill here, but you can start to see as we start to test this level, right, it becomes more powerful. So if that does kind of back and fill for a couple days and then breaks, say, Wednesday or something, right, then you're going to want to probably look at this coin and some of the other ones. The CLSK, it was acting like a turd all week. And, it kept getting rugged at this 24. And I know the CEO sold some shares, and then they announced an offering after hours. I believe it is at like 19 bucks and some change. So that's, I don't know why my postmark's not updated, but yeah, it got down into the 19s. They did an $800 million ATM. So it's going to have some sell pressure on it. Look, in the end, like this thing was like $2, right? Like, to not raise money is almost criminal, right? So, like, if I'm the CEO of this company, I'm pumping and dumping on all the schleps trading this all day, right? So, no regrets. These things happen. So keep an eye on some of these. If this thing gets a big sell-off, like, does it take down Mara? Maybe not, right? Because Mara's looking a lot better, but it did have a little bit of a reversal candle on it, too. So these are something we'll have to just kind of keep an eye on and read and react. Into the general, I'm still watching this one. I'm watching this 116 zone on Dell. I think these Solar's got some bottoming patterns on this. You got Sadig here. You have Nova that's got a little bit of a flag that's developing here after this kind of bottoming capitulation. This was a capitulation move right here. And now you got starting to see the volume pick up some accumulation. So I think both of these are looking pretty good. This Onan out of kind of the mid-cap names, this one has the best chart. It should be freaking illegal to wear shoes this ugly. These Onan shoes, do you put on these Onan shoes? It's basically like a European Crocs, right? Like you see an American wearing Crocs, this guy's got a pickup truck. He's rocking Monster Energy drinks. When somebody's wearing those poofy cloud shoes, those Onan shoes, they're like the anti-Crocs people, but in the end, they're the same, right? Like, no 50-year-old man should wear $400 sneakers with, the platform cloud soles. Like, what are you bouncing on, right? Get yourself some flip-flops from Target like everybody else. Jeez, right? Here you go. So that thing is looking good, but it should be illegal to, wear something so ugly. It really should. SQ, 1 test, 2 tests, 3 tests. This thing's looking pretty good if it can come out of this 85, 86 range. I think that one's got a nice look to it. Hold on, I got to delete those. One thing I want you to keep an eye on this week, we've got a potential W pattern setting up on Snow. This could be a little bit of a bottom that's setting up on this. We don't know for sure. I think it would need to come out of this range, but something to watch. If it starts to creep its head, that's the bottom on it. FTX, not a sexy name, but you got a big level right here that is tested now for multiple days. This is a 15-minute chart. You got 290 spot that's just been holding up on this one. App, this is what we call a trend pullback tray, right? You got this deep trend. If you can pull back and hold at the 20 SMA, I think that's probably a good flipper right there. And if we need some shorts, right, you got this Lulu here. If it breaks down this low, this one and Nike have the very similar setup. And then, for you kind of older folks that do a little swing trading, little IRAs, all this kind of stuff, this cost is double tested now in the 50-day moving average. As it's starting to rip and ride here, when it comes out of this, that can start a potential move. And, it's been now marinating post-earnings for quite some time. And usually, this company, even if it bombs on its earnings, it gets bought up. Now, obviously, it's up a lot the last couple of years, but I'd watch and see if this thing, it may dip under the 50 for a second. That'll usually be the buy spot if it rips back. But we've got a spot here that is developing, and, you can see right? It's just this hourly chart, right? Just a big long rounding pattern. I think that's got a good look. Out of the big caps, I think Google's probably the top watch for next week. For me personally, I'll be eyeing the 152 calls, maybe 155 or something along that end. You don't want to get too crazy with these because it's not like a huge ATR stock, right? So, I usually like to go the nearest to the moneys. So probably 152s. If we get a week open and a red to green on this, I'm a player in this. Nike still watching the break of this, particular low around 90. And, if the mega caps start to hold, watch this, Microsoft. You've had about 5 days of pullback here. Start to trigger a little oversold reading. If you gap down, say you tap into the 20 SMA, it'd probably be good for a little bit of a flip there. We could roll in with, say, the 425 or even 430 calls on that. Lift, you got breakout, pullback, good look right there, too. And then I think this VKTX is setting up for a nice breakout. Trade's a little bit thin, so you want to really watch your size. You don't want to go in huge size. There's a lack of liquidity on this one. You got to almost layer into this, and then it tends to work a little bit better. And then, I'm watching this Reddit. This is a huge rollover, and it's going to keep rolling over. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a dead cat bounce at 45. If it gaps down into 45, we probably get a flip for 3-4 points, and then you can probably flip it back short. This thing will probably head down to $20 or wherever it's supposed to. Usually these IPOs tend to do that post-IPO. So keep an eye on that one. We can do a quick flip on it. So I don't think there's anything that exciting yet. We want to see what happens with this IWM and see if that kind of speaks to us in terms of, is there a subset of small caps and mid caps that start to peek its head and start to trend? When the cycles happen on those, there's usually a few leaders that you end up being able to trade for, long periods of time. We've had that, in the past where it's like a stock like a UPST or something where you just trade it, back and forth for months and months, and it's glorious. So let's see if that thing holds, and then we'll have some fun tomorrow. Guys, we had a short week last week with Friday off. Usually the Monday can be a little bit tricky, especially if we get the gap up. So be careful at the open. You don't got to go too crazy. Wait it out for, 15, 20 minutes. That'll let the dust trickle. Then you'll kind of have a better idea where things are going.